we are going to be talking about white privilege. And whenever people want to try to convince me that white privilege isn't a real thing, so this is a very personal incident from my own work life. Black people, especially black people of a certain generation, if you're Gen X or you're Boomer or you're Silent Generation, you know this. Your parents instilled in you that you did not leave the house rumpled and crumpled. Black people always have to take into account when we leave our house is that we look good, because we know we are going to be judged. But for white women, that is not a consideration. White people have an expectation that black people are going to look a certain way. I know the minute I walk in my office, people are going to start critiquing and making judgments. And white people don't have those pressures and don't have those concerns. And that is a textbook definition of what white privilege is. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Brick City Brown Chick Show. I am your host, the aforementioned Chick, and today we are talking about a topic that always gets people riled up and in their feelings. So these are always fun. We are going to be talking about white privilege. And whenever people want to try to convince me that white privilege isn't a real thing, at least start having an intelligent conversation about what privilege is and why people of color see it everywhere and what that means for America. So this is a very personal incident from my own work life. I have two coworkers. One I'll call H and one I'll call B.
The team really needed that.
It sounds amazing.
And we have lunch together, the three of us, nearly every day. Every day we're in the office, that's just a thing. So we have all sorts of interesting conversations during our lunch break about a whole host of things. D is very into like sci-fi, vampire shows, and all that sort of thing. H is a true hippie. She's a hippie girl born a generation too late, but she likes her shows and her jam bands and her Facebook groups about music and all that sort of thing. So they're very different women, as am I in this bunch, but we all get along because, you know, we all listen to
where
each other.
Everyone feels heard.
When we listen with genuine empathy, the solutions often present themselves that we didn't know about or weren't aware of. So that's pretty cool. A conversation we had last week was, I was telling the story about a fall I took in my house, which wasn't that exciting, but it was one of those, I was doing too much, I was dealing with laundry and ironing and a bunch of other stuff, and I just didn't pay close attention to where I was walking and tripped and fell into a table at the end of my hallway. It's like a little pointy coffee table, and sort of cut my side open and all this kind of stuff. And so my takeaway from that was I really needed to get a better handle on how much stuff I'm trying to cram into a weekend. Understanding that I am no longer 20-something or even 30-something. I am 55, and I just need to get real about what can be accomplished in a 2-day weekend. And I was telling this to B and to H, and I said I was in the middle of ironing. And I ironed for the week on Sunday. I look at the weather, I see what's going to happen, I lay the clothes out, and I get them all ironed. I don't have the patience to do that every day. It annoys me, so I just need to get it done. So I started to think, all right, how can I make this less work? The ironing is probably 2.5 hours. That's how much time I spend ironing. So I thought, maybe I need to split it in half. Much as I don't really want to do that. Maybe I need to focus on the outfits for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Wednesday night, figure out some things for the other couple of days. Now, something you have to understand about me is that I've always been a well-dressed person. When I was in college, even, I wore skirts and dresses and heels on a campus full of people in sweatshirts and trucker hats and sweatpants. So that's never bothered me. That's just who I am. So I'm cool with that. So I was talking about splitting up the ironing and how I was going to do this. And I had mentioned this to my husband, who does not iron. It's not that he doesn't know how, and it's not that he can't. It's just not a thing for him. He just doesn't care. So he's like, or you could just not iron. That was his recommendation for how I deal with this situation. And my coworker H was like, that's it. He hit it on the nose right there. Just don't iron. And my coworker B said, absolutely. I don't think I've ironed a thing since I was in pageants when I was in my 20s. And I just stared at the two of them like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And why is that? I really did have to think about it for a minute. It's because Black people, especially Black people of a certain generation, if you're Gen X or you're Boomer or you're Silent Generation, you know this. Your parents instilled in you that you did not leave the house rumpled and crumpled and not put together. And part of that is ironing your clothes. My mother always said, I don't care if the outfit wrinkles 5 minutes after you put it on because you creased it in the car. At least you ironed it and you left the house looking presentable. And so that is something that Black people always have to take into account when we leave our house, is that we look good, because we know we are going to be judged not just by white people, but by other Black people. Other Black women particularly may look at you like, does she not have home training? Like, what happened to her? Why are her clothes wrinkled? Or is she going through something? What is this about? But for white women, that is not a consideration. If they iron their clothes, if they don't iron their clothes.
I didn't even have time to iron this morning.
And more importantly,
but honestly, I just decided to embrace the chaos.
Don't care either. They don't have that expectation. And it is the expectation that makes this white privilege. White people have an expectation that Black people are going to look a certain way. When I leave my house to go to work, my outfit is clean and pressed. I'm wearing makeup. My hair is neat. All that stuff, because I know the minute I walk in my office, people are going to start critiquing and making judgments. And they don't have to make them to me. Most people are smart enough to not make them to my face. But I know there are these thoughts going on in their head. So there's a real world, everyday example of how privilege works and the types of things you have to think about as a person of color as soon as you leave your home, comfortable environment. It starts from the minute you lock your door in the morning and leave until the time you unlock your door and come home at night. That is a constant, all day, everyday thing. You can be going to the gym, you can be going to the grocery store, you can be going to work, you can be going to pick up your kids. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you will be judged on your appearance. And white people don't have those pressures and don't have those concerns. And that is a textbook definition of what white privilege is. I want to thank everybody for joining me this week, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.